Hey everybody, today we are talking about A River of Blood by Adam Williams. Thank you very much to Earnshaw Books for providing me with an advanced copy of this book. And I just have to say that right off the top, I quite enjoyed the story and the writing. I think the writing was really great with this book. This book is set in Egypt in the year 1099. Our story is written in the first person, and the character is named Samuel. He is telling us the story of how he had to go and investigate the River Nile and why it looks like it has been turned into blood. So he goes there with his apprentice, Gregory, and they go to run some scientific experiments and figure out if this is actually blood or if it is in fact something that can be explained by science rather than an act of God. And while they are investigating this, they've taken a few samples and they are continuing along the river, and they discover that there are some crocodiles there, and they are next to a body, or rather half of a body, the torso of a body. And so they get it out of the water, they get themselves safe from the crocodiles, and it turns out that this body does not look like it has been chewed at by these crocodiles. Rather, it looks like there are precise cuts of the body and burns on the body. So it appears that the body has been tortured in some way and then placed in this river to make it look like it has been gnawed at by crocodiles, but when in fact it hasn't. And Samuel, because of him being a doctor, he can tell just by looking at this body that it must have been a murder and not an accident. And so he immediately has his apprentice Gregory go and get this information to the Wali, which is essentially the police force. I thought that this book was going to center a lot more around this idea of proving that this river is not actually full of blood, that the water wasn't changed to blood, and that there was this reasoning behind it. Our story did start with this happening, like they were on the way to test this river at the very beginning of the book. But very shortly after that, because they find this body, the whole story shifts into figuring out about this whole body situation. And Samuel feels like he needs to get justice for this person who's clearly been done wrong, and it's clearly being covered up because of how he found the body and where he found it. And so he's just trying to do his right, the right thing, by trying to bring justice and figure out who did this to this man. And the story shifts to that being the sole plot now, rather than the river. So because of the river, the whole rest of the book is a thing. And so without them going to the river in the first place, they would have never found this body. The rest of the book is essentially just Samuel trying to figure out what happened and why it happened, and trying to get justice for this body. But it also turns into a lot more than what he was expecting it to be. He really did not realize the importance of letting this go, because when he turns it into the police the first time, to the Wali, they say this body was in fact eaten and mauled by crocodiles. And they show a body to Samuel again to say, see, look. And it is a body that has been mauled by crocodiles, but it was not the same body. And he's like, this is not the body I brought to you, like that I found. And, Samuel's wise enough to know that, but he doesn't read between the lines of, okay, why are they showing you a different body? Probably because they want you to leave it alone and not look into this. But he just can't let it be. Like, he feels like he needs to know why this happened and what's going on. And so it leads him to more and more information that also leads him to more and more dangerous situations where he's traveling between all these different places and continually getting himself into situations where it's gonna be bad for him if he doesn't stop looking into this. So it's kind of like a historical fiction murder mystery story that we're trying to figure out these, like, what happened with Samuel, and trying to get down to the bottom of it. And there's a lot of historical features in this because we're in Egypt, and it goes through a lot of information about the area and about the different levels of power. And if you're someone who really loves history, you really like historical fiction and historical based novels and things like that, I think that you're gonna really enjoy this book because it really does go pretty deep into the different levels of power at the time and where Samuel fits in with this, and a lot of stuff that I didn't know and still don't completely understand, because history is always been a harder subject for me to keep straight. And that is why the glossary and the foreword in this book are very helpful. The book has a foreword where it explains a little bit about the setting and what was going on at the time and what inspired him for writing this book. It also has a map, but the copy that I was reading did not yet have the map, and so I love a good map, so I really would have benefited from seeing this so that I could reference it and know where he was and how far away it was from other places that were being referenced. I think it would have been really great. So for those of you that are going to pick this up and read it, you will be pleased to know that there is going to be a map in there, and also a list. Like at the end of the book there's a glossary, and at the beginning of the book he explains a little bit of, and there's also a character list that explains the relationship between the different characters and their roles in like for example, Jawa is the like leader of the Wali base. He's basically like, I don't know, like a sheriff or a commissioner, I guess, because he's like the leader of the policemen. So there's all these other tiers of different places of religious groups, and then also of the empire, and of just like a lot of things that having that list is very helpful if you're not familiar with, like I am not very familiar with the how it works in Egypt and at this time period how it was. As I said in the beginning, the writing is really good. It's almost too good. I had to look up a few words that I have not read before, that I was not familiar with, so that I can make sure I was understanding fully. So it's definitely well written, and it definitely made me want to know what was happening next. There were a couple of times where I got stuck on some of the like I said before, just the terminology that I wasn't familiar with, or the certain types of like politics that I am not super familiar with, and so having to reference back to those things to help me understand better. But overall, it was a really nice read. If you want to read about this area of the world and a murder mystery and our main character trying to bring this all together, and just there's so much that goes on that I just don't want to spoil any of it. But basically, if you like something that challenges you in terms of trying to figure out what's going to happen next, then you're going to like this. If you like history, you're going to like this. If you like Egypt, I'm sure you're going to like this. I must also say that this is a part one of a two-part story. So the ending is, we still don't know who is the initial person responsible for these killings, because there are more than one, and they get revealed as you read through the book. And so we don't have a full resolution by the end of this, but I think where they cut it off to begin the next book, it was in a really good spot. It didn't end with like a major cliffhanger or anything like that, so which I think is actually nice, because then you can be patient in waiting for the part 2 to come out and read that part, and you don't have to like feel caught off guard or anything like that. So I think it did end in a good spot for us to pick back up with the part 2. Again, thanks to Earnshaw Books for giving me this advanced copy to read, and thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!